Here we have our character broadsheets. We make references to characters past and have invited characters from previous campaigns into the current campaign that we're dealing with. But oftentimes with no context and just legends to go off of, if there are any legends of that character in this campaign. I want to take some time to talk to each of our players and go over some of their previous characters, mostly to invoke nostalgia, but also to blackmail them with those memories they have. Today specifically, we're going to be talking about Eredan, from Kyle's campaign, the second campaign that we did as a group.
The World of a Through. That's right. Eredan Bengal.
Here's how sad. I didn't even know he had a last name. I just knew Eredan. Oh boy, Shadowfell. Cool. Yeah.
I mean, he definitely was a hot flame. I'll give you that much. Twice as fast.
Burns twice as fast. Yeah. Yep. So let's just start right off the bat. Eredan gets put in this world. Is there any reason why he has his name? Is there any specific reason why you gave him the name Eredan Bengal? Or is it just cool? It sounded cool. Wanted to use it. Heard it in a book.
Actually, the process that I go through when it comes to naming most of my characters now, like post Balthazar, is I figure out if I want to do a voice, and then I go through various names and I modify them so that way the accent will roll off with whatever the name is. So like with Eredan, because I played him as kind of like a Slavic or a Russian character, it was always like Eredan Bengal, right? And so that was like the whole deal. And I was like, yep, that's a good fucking name right there.
Which is the funny thing, because you made Eredan like Slavic, let's say, and I made Rabe very like Germanocentric. German. And so the two accented characters being like, yes, we are best friends. I agree. It was the
fucking
best.
one-on-ones where it was just like, you could just watch everybody else going like, fucking stop.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing I wish we could have, like, if I could go back in time, the one thing I would have told us is you need to record, first of all, first campaign, and second campaign, that's a good one. Record that so everyone can see what that campaign was. I don't know what it was. I'm still trying to figure out. I'm processing my emotion. But so that's the story behind the character's name. What class was Eredan? Why did you choose that for him?
Well, when we were coming up with fucking our composition, right? I was like, okay, well, initially I wanted to play a barbarian. I didn't want to play like what Eredan ended up becoming. I was like, oh, I had this idea in my head, and this, I believe, was pre-God of War 2018, I think. I wanted to have a barbarian that was scrawny and like looked emaciated, and then when he raged, he just stayed scrawny and emaciated, but was like oddly strong. So when I made Eredan, I made him incredibly scrawny, and like was like, all right, this is gonna be sweet. And literally in campaigns, or like in session 0, when I looked around and Kyle was like, well, we need to have some player composition or some party composition, because you guys have to have, this is going to be a very specific style. You guys should really like, and nobody else wanted to be a healer or a support. Yeah. And so I was like, and you were fresh off of Emiko, which was about as close to a support as you can get in the campaign.
It wasn't just Emiko though. It was also, there was Thrive before that. Those were the two those were the two campaign characters I had made. And coming off of being a healer primarily, I was like, I'm not doing that again. Like, any of y'all motherfuckers can change your class. I want to play a different class.
Naturally. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess he'll be a cleric now. And I've always like at that time I was always like very aware of a cleric and how actually powerful clerics are. A lot of people sleep on clerics, but because people sleep on clerics, Wizards of the Coast at the time made them hyper powerful.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you look at them, bro, they're too much.
First level spell Inflict Wounds does 3d8 damage or like 3d10 damage.
It was 4d10, I think, or 3d. Yeah, I think it is 4d10.
I think it's
a level that, because I don't think it's at any rate.
But they're powerful. Like they're
incredible.
Most of their non-damage focused spells are kind of meh. But when you get like the damage spells, Inflict Wounds from level 1, yeah, that means that the first
really
level you're doing 3d10. Boom, boom, boom. And it's necrotic too. So unless you're facing Lynch or Undead, cool. They're getting fucking melted.
Right. And so,
which is fun.
So when I made Eredan, I was like, okay, well, Barbarian, okay, never mind. I guess he's going to be this. But also, I believe that we had 2 paladins, and both of those paladins picked their their skill proficiencies very, very skewed towards combat. We had a monk who, no offense, Amanda, monks don't exactly have all of the skills, right? They have like acrobatics and like some wisdom based ones. Yeah, they just break faces. And so I was like, okay, well, we only have this one rogue, and this one rogue doesn't have all of those skills. So I was like, knowledge domain cleric gets like all of the skills. They end up having like 7 proficiencies in total. And
you were proficient in a lot of stuff, if I remember correctly.
And they get expertise.
Oh damn!
Right, which is so I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now, right?
Expertise can make or break a character really easily.
Expertise can do a lot of shit, and so like when I made all this out, most of these choices that I ended up making were at session 0 because I had to fucking scramble and come up with something completely different. And then we had 2 weeks downtime between session 0 and the actual start of the campaign, so I got to go over all of his backstory and shit.
So explain more to me. I mean, like you've touched on it a little bit here and there, but explain more to me about Eredan. Personality. You've already explained the role that they filled in the party of being kind of the knowledgeable one, the heal people. But yeah, like go into a bit more in depth about Eredan in general.
Yeah. So Eredan was he wasn't supposed to be this way, but because of his backstory, I had him being. It's kind of funny because him and Rabe very similar. He was a forward scout for a Shadarkai raiding party, and his whole deal was that he would scout out in the Shadowfell for the portals to the Prime Material Realm, so that way they could do their raiding and then get back. And he accidentally happened upon a portal that didn't make itself known until after he had crossed through, and then it closed. And so he found himself at a very young age in the Prime Material Realm. Okay, so he basically was like a foreigner in this world who was just sort of like dropped in here with like no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and ended up becoming a medical doctor. So most of his healing spells, actually all of his healing spells, started off as being like cure wounds as I'm applying a bandage, fucking giving you morphine, so on and so forth. Like he had a doctor bag that he would actually deal with.
And that's where I got the idea for Connor from. For when he did his healing, it was going to be wrapping up and that's the reason why I flavored Connor and the Rye in our current campaign as being like when they're using their spells, they're actually doing medical stuff.
Right.
So if you need me to roll medicine roll, like because you showed that cool flavoring, and I was like, that's actually pretty dope. Like
Yeah,
Yoink,
it was
that's mine now. Just put that in the bag.
100%. Yeah. It was. I was like, this is actually so funny enough. I got that because between session 0 and first session, I watched The Unsleeping City by Dimension 20, and there's an NPC character in there who's like this backwoods doctor, like alleyway Russian doctor, and I was like, I'm playing a Russian doctor, and then I was like, ooh, and he's like,
That's me.
yeah, and he's like this totally like streetwise, like, you know, doesn't care if you're committing crimes or whatever, yada yada yada, and I was like, this is it, that's my guy. I need to basically like replicate that and then make it my own.
Yeah.
But his whole personality was, I'm very much in a foreign place. I have no idea of like the common mannerisms. I don't know any of these sorts of things, and so that's why we had in one session where he got his ass whooped by a ninja that just so happened to be 10 levels higher than him at level 3, was because he walked up to introduce himself to this guild, and the ninja said, do you want to fight? And he was like, is that how you say hello? And then he was like, yep. And so I was like, okay. And he's like, meet me out back if you want to learn more. And then he proceeded to just beat the shit out of me. Because, you know, darkness, ninjas, yada yada yada. And I was like, oh, okay, so I should just like sit here and take this, because clearly I can't do anything with a guy who's got like a 20 AC because he's a dodge tank. But but that was kind of his thing, was like, I don't know anything about this, so, you know, like, and also he was very smug. His whole like player profile was just like straight brow, like, not smug, dry, like, okay, so this is what we're doing then, all right, that's fine, like taking everything as it comes. That was pretty much it.
So, cleric knowledge domain. Why that specific? Like, why the knowledge domain specifically? Other than, I think you've already said, like, that was more or less to be kind of the skill monkey a little bit, as well as help yourself. But, like, where did you get the idea for that from? Was there any decisions that, like, might have made you stop and reconsider it?
So, the knowledge domain cleric, I think, was in Xanathar's. I want to say that's where it came from.
Probably.
No, wait a minute. That wasn't it. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I can't remember where a knowledge domain cleric comes from. But at the time it was on Earth Arcana, and I asked Kyle, I was like, can I use this? It's UA, it's probably kind of broken, but like, I don't mind if we monkey around with it like mid-campaign. I'm not asking you to like lock me in or anything. And he was all right with that. He was like, yeah, as long as you're willing to yada yada yada. But that was just because I was like I had said with I think it was Balthazar, like, I now like to have like a really sort of like grittier, like low magic sort of game. And so at the time, I thought that we were going to be doing a lot more like researching, fact-finding, shit like that, which is something that I hold a lot of value in. And I'm like, if we can know as much ahead of time before we just go jumping into a house that's literally infested with mimics, and also the house itself is a mimic, like, that's the whole deal.
He made it quite clear, like, you can do research at the Adventurers Guild. They'll have like all of the books you'll need and stuff like that. So he did like mostly hint towards like, this is going to be not low magic, but as low as it can be without it kind of breaking. And then there came a point where it just felt like that didn't matter.
It was actually the exact opposite. Once we started playing, we found out it was actually incredibly high magic. It was very high magic. And so what I had done is effectively kneecapped myself with probably the how do you put this? Trying to think of how I should. Oh, never mind. Knowledge cleric is just straight out the PHB. Huh, I'm dumb.
Really?
Yeah, I guess I. Anyways, so I kneecapped myself in the fact that I didn't go with one of the more potent classes like life domain to be pure healer, war domain if I wanted to be a fighter as well. Anything like that. I didn't do that. Instead, I went with literally one of the mechanically weakest ones. And so what I found was that it didn't work very well.
We might have discussed this on the Balthazar episode, but you did eventually make him a war cleric, correct?
He ended up being a forge cleric. So yeah, after Eredan's death,
Yeah.
Balthazar, I was like, oh, okay, I see now. This game, that's the other thing, is that I very quickly, like within 3 sessions, realized that Eredan wasn't going to fit in this campaign. And I kind of voiced those concerns a bit, been like, hey, can I also change my shit? Because this isn't going to work. Like, my skills are to know the knowledge of places, people, things. I can read thoughts, yada, yada, yada. And then every time I'm doing that, I'm just getting denied and denied and denied. So I'm like...
Yeah.
I was like, well, if I can't use the abilities that I have, then I can't really be, like, support. So when Eredan got sunsetted, Balthazar ended up being a forge cleric and ended up being probably the biggest tank that I think I've ever seen shy of Kaioken.
Yeah, for sure. So you kind of hit on my second question of like, was there strictly a RP sent, or was there like a roleplay reason for the entire thing? You kind of already hit on that, but is there anything else you wanted to add about that, or?
Oh yeah. Actually, he was a cleric of Agma. Agma is the god of life in the Forgotten Realm setting, right? Or the god of knowledge, sorry, a god of knowledge in the Forgotten Realm setting. And so I had workshopped with Kyle. I was like, hey, here's something that I think is super cool. What if we took this idea of the god of knowledge and his followers are really into learning, like really into learning? He was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I was like, and what if instead of them being like, librarians and teachers, what if instead they were like the CIA? Like, you could literally like find these guys anywhere. Their whole deal was like they're willing to pay for information, but also like if you have information that they want or need, that they're willing to do anything to gain this knowledge, because this is their whole domain.
And that kind of
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say it was definitely like a cool notion, and then it didn't happen that way, and so it was like that was kind of like the pin in it. I was like, okay, so none of this character is gonna fit at all in this world. So
yeah,
but
that was a thing was with Rave. Like, I think when you made it, I think we over Snapchat had like agreed that like our characters were not made for this world
because Telegram is garbage and it was only cool during the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, but like we agreed that our characters weren't made for that world, and it kind of just sucked. And I mean, like, yeah, it became a drag for me to play Rave, and I'm assuming it was the same thing with you with Eredan. But the thing is I was like, I tried to hold out.
It was less sucky for me as Eredan, I think, because I again, clerics are super potent, right? And so I could still shore up a little bit my shortcomings with the usual cleric spells, Spirit Guardians, Spirit Shroud when that came out. I was dex based, yada yada yada. Like, I could still shore up those shortcomings by using these things that I really didn't want to use if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
But it was still kind of a drag because like Eredan was going down every other battle, Ray was going down every battle. Like it was not conducive with like where all right, this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but I think that our group at the time wanted to be epic heroes, and what we were pitched, I think there was a miscommunication because we were not epic heroes. We were the underdogs, but we were so far under that like it was Dragon Ball Z scaling. You know what I mean? Like it was like, all right, cool, sure, we can blow up this rock over here, but like that guy's been powering up for 20 levels and he's about to destroy this planet, and I'm Yamcha, so
Yeah, exactly.
like, all right, that
My
kind of
body's
doesn't.
decomposing in the dirt 2
Yeah,
miles away. So, you know.
and so I, yeah, ultimately I talked about sunsetting him, and that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Where originally, when you made Eredan, did you see where did you see Eredan going? Was there any like specific plot points that you wanted to really hammer in while role playing him, or was it kind of from the offset, kind of felt like that just wasn't going to happen?
Well, I had said very explicitly since the beginning that Eredan's whole deal was he wanted to get back to the Shadowfell. He had a question that he needed to be answered, and the only way he could answer that was literally to talk to the Raven Queen herself, who rules the domain of the Shadowfell. And because Kyle was very like Forgotten Realms centric in that at that point,
Yeah.
and so I was like, well, if at any point we run into a hint of Shadowfell and potentially getting back to a portal, Eredan's going for it.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's it. Like, if it ends my character in the next 2 sessions, then it ends my character the next 2 sessions. I have 30 plus characters, as always. I will pick something else. You know what I mean? And so, like, that was where the end was always going to be, was him going back, because canonically, Shadowkai are always dying. They have a shadow curse that kills them slowly over time, and Eredan did not have that. That's part of being a player character, is you're kind of like special, right? And so I was like, oh, he didn't have that. Wanted to know why. Maybe it was a blessing, maybe it was not, yada yada yada. Imagine everybody around you is dying and you are not, and you're a doctor who wants to know why, right? And so that was like his whole, that was the end goal for Eredan specifically. But where it ended up taking him was that I was like, hey, this character doesn't fit. The sanctity of this character is something that I want to keep, and so I wrote out his demise. I was like, the next fight, this is how I want you to kill him. Because if you do it this way, then at the very least, our collective memory of how he dies, it'll tie into how I'm going to bring him into my world.
Yeah.
That was the whole point. And so I kind of got that, but, you know.
So going off center, is that the reason why you made the world, the Embers of Hope world, the way it is now? A low magic setting, so that way Eredan fits in a bit more, or was it kind of a mix between somewhere in the middle?
After saying that, I can see how you would take that. No. The way the reason that the current campaign is the way it is a direct result of the repercussions of your guys' characters from my first campaign, and me having 2 years to. Well, it's me having 2 years to logic this out. The first one shot that we did, that you guys could not complete in time.
Yeah.
That is the exact reason why it is a low magic setting, or a near low magic setting in my campaign now.
Yeah.
Is because the bad guy at the end was not stopped, so the domino effect happened, hence why there's this sort of like magic curse now. But it does help that Eredan is in this world, wherever he's at, doing whatever it is that he's doing.
That kind of leads nicely into the next question of, this character story obviously hasn't ended. How do you envision it ending? In a perfect world where everything goes to plan as you plan it, how does Eredan like kind of finish his journey more?
Oh, right. Yeah. The headcanon ending for Eredan, assuming that I don't ever play him again as a PC, if I never pick him up again, then the headcanon for where Eredan ends is he basically just becomes like Doctor Extraordinaire, sets up a church, a school, this or that, becomes a patron, like because he doesn't have the same deal. He will spend his time trying to heal the Shadowfell of its curse, while simultaneously sending out adventurers or sending out pleas for adventuring, yada yada yada, and trying to start the business of information brokering, because as we all know now, player characters have the worst time trying to get information out of things. So if you have a person who's like, hey, instead of you going into this library and trying to figure this stuff out, you could just pay me money and I will tell you.
Give it. Yeah.
Because boy, oh boy. I know it's boring, but man, I don't know why I enjoy the boring part the most, which is the researching and the going to these people. You got to go find the old sage. You got to barter for this and that. And then that's what I find interesting about D&D.
I mean, to be fair, like Fallout 4, for example, I'm not there for the main quest. I'm here to explore the side quest, baby. That's where it's at. I don't care about my son Sean being the head of the institute. Fuck that guy. I'm going to Far Harbor, bitch.
Yeah. Naturally.
But I want to hang out with Nick a bit more. He's pretty cool.
But that's all predicated on whether or not I ever get to play him again.
So, outside of that, what is like a one-shot or a miniature campaign? What is a plot or an adventure that you have in mind that we, as either as the adventuring party or as the current party, haven't seen, that you either want to play or want to run?
Are you familiar with Strixhaven? Like the Strixhaven book that D&D put out?
The name rings a bell, but not really.
So Strixhaven is basically a wizard college, right? If you look at the book, it's an adventure book that takes place in a college, the College of Strixhaven, and it's where you go to become a wizard. I would take something like that and I would make it instead the Church of Ogma, and him becoming like a full-fledged like member, like a journeyman inquisitor is basically what he was. Like, go. And it would be him, whatever party of his like classmates, cohorts in the school, yada yada yada. Either that or I had him do a cameo in one of the one-shots that you guys ran. His cameo was that he appeared and went and then left the battlefield, and that was him literally going from Karan to the Shadowfell.
Yeah.
So I would have that adventure be an adventure that you guys would play as him being like, fuck, I gotta get back to blah 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 blah. But yeah, those two would be the ideas.
Okay. I've got an extra question, but I'll ask that after this one. So, normally the final question is, would you ever play this character again? I want to know as well, like, what would be the right circumstances, the right campaign type for you to hop into the vehicle of Eredan again?
I think the way that I would play Eredan again is if I was told that there would be a campaign that takes place in an urban environment. Like, this would have to be something like, we're all going to be in Waterdeep forever. Like, the whole campaign is going to take place in Waterdeep, because urban campaigns is where he's going to thrive. Someplace that's going to be contained, that isn't going to have fucking dragons everywhere and manticore sweeping in, and I think he would have done really well in the Mimic Library, because that's his whole bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would probably be where I would bring him back. I wouldn't put him in a regular D&D campaign of like, Lord of the Rings, you travel to Mordor to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not viable.
A final question I have for you as Eredan is, best way to put it, is there any regrets you had in the way that you played Eredan, or the way that Eredan kind of got mishandled in the campaign is the best way I can, like, is there any moment in time specifically where you were just like, no, this just isn't. Nope, can't do it.
There's actually a good number of them. I can distinctly remember some of the spells that I took, like Locate Object. It's a very interesting spell. You can locate whether or not an object is within 1,000 feet of you, and you know where it's at. That's the spell. We had a quest where we were supposed to track down these thieves that were using items that they had stolen, putting them in people's way. When they picked them up, they would then use Locate Object to go and rob those people. That is a phenomenal quest, like, hook, right? So that shit goes down. We get into a scuffle. Because Eredan's a Shadarkai, he has Shadow Jump, and then he can dash, and then he can run, right? And so I'm catching up immediately to these people, and then they using... the only way that you can put this is using DM magic. These guys get away. And I'm like, fine, I want to cast Locate Object. He's like, oh, it doesn't work. I'm like, okay, fine. I know the direction that they were heading. I want to go there. Oh, you're stopped by guards. Okay, cool, guards. These guys are robbers, yada, yada, yada. Oh, those guards are actually bad guys in hiding. They're disguised. Because you didn't say that you wanted to look at them and verify that they were guards, this is what's happening. Okay, cool. That's a pretty good double cross. Shadow Jump. Oh, they immediately lash you up and blind you. I'm like, they blind me, but they don't know what I am. So they don't know that I have this ability. But because the ability says in the rules that you have to be able to see the place, I can't use it. Okay. All right, that's fine. That was one. 2 was the interrogation scene. Do you remember the in the cave with the halfling interrogation?
Yes, I do, because the entire time I was like, no, Rafe should be able to do this because I have intimidation.
Yeah,
it makes
sure.
sense that they
So
would be
did
like knowledge
Eredan,
expert.
but also I had been calling him a fucking inquisitor since the first. I'm like, he's an inquisitor. He knows how to get information from people. That's fine. If I got a DC, whatever. When you tie somebody up, restrain them with chains, and you throw their feet into the fire, I don't care if they have bravery. Someone's giving you.
Wasn't it a hand first? I think it was like the entire hand.
Oh, it was a hand because he was. It was just the feet I had lashed them up in chains and ropes and pulled a chain shirt over so they could not bust out. They could not get out, right? And then I was like, hey, tell me what's gonna happen or I'm gonna burn your feet, and then you won't be able to run away. And then they went, nope. I went, okay. And I was expecting, like, eventually something, anything, because these people that just tried to kidnap Eredan had kind of gotten away, except they had lost a bunch of numbers. And this person was captured, and so on and so forth. And then the reasoning behind that was, like, it wasn't fulfilling. And I was like, oh, okay, that's why it didn't work. Sure. I guess I'll suspend my disbelief on that. Why not? And then there was one other thing. Oh yeah,
I remember what that scene was specifically. The first example you gave, I didn't remember until you brought it. And then I was like, oh no, I do remember this because that was the night that I was like, I'm gonna get drunk. But yeah, with the interrogation scene, he was just like, they won't talk. And
the reasoning behind it
there came a point where it's like,
and it was like, okay,
very much so.
Like, sure, I guess, but this is clearly a bad guy, and you're telling me that they won't talk. Okay, the one thing that we did have a workaround was because we had our guild badges and we had already recorded, so we'd been recording, but then he ended up getting punished because he tortured somebody, and it was like, well, that's not a very good thing to do. I'm like, they tried to kidnap me.
Yeah,
I want answers. But the other thing actually wasn't because of the DM. It was because of the players, and I fucking hated it, but I went with it because I was like, all right, sure, why not? Because he's a foreigner, because he was stupid, yada, yada, yada. Like, eventually, apparently, the only way that we could get room and board was if my character slept with the old lady that owned the inn. I hated that, actually. That pissed me off really, really badly. But because the net fun was, like, up, I was like, sure, why not? I was like, my guy was literally like, you see these scars. So I had him be tattooed from head to toe, but also scarification was huge on him. I was like, and he was like, total edgelord, yada, yada, yada. And so he was getting ready for bed. There was a like, hey, you got to go down and pay for yada yada yada. So he went down there, and then like everybody else was like, yeah, go have sex with her. And I was like, he doesn't really do that. That's not really his bag. And then it just turned into like, well, if you don't, then you're gonna have to pay for blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, like sure, why not? And then it was like all the laughs. I was like, you know what? If you guys are having fun with this, I guess whatever. But like that was like taking my serious character and then turning him into like, you know, like a joke. Funny. I was like, all right, this is fucking dumb. But yeah. What are you gonna do? I got him back because everybody went when he died by 5 specters fucking beating the shit out of him. Everybody else's face was like, Jesus Christ, he's serious.
I do remember specifically, like, I as Rabe, especially since it was Rabe, like I was like, I want to go back in, and the only reason why the party was like, no, we can't. And I think Kyle kind of came off the vibes of you can't rescue it now, like it's too late.
Well, also,
like,
Eredan
also
looked at you and said,
in the battle right beforehand. Also, Rabe had gone down in the battle beforehand. Yeah. Oh, hey,
all 5 hit points. Yeah, that's a very common theme with your characters. Is I'll sacrifice, but you know, like I said, those were just like the big like. I was a little grumpy with those situations, but then ultimately I got my thing with Balthazar 2.0, and I was like, all right, that's he was a totally different beast, and I could just be like, yep, I understand what's happening here with everything. Just be like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna murder hobo the shit out of all this stuff out of spite. Because I'm spiteful and petty. Like, that's what we're getting at here. With Rabe, I'm spiteful and petty.
That was the thing, was the second half of the campaign very much became okay, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna fucking hate you, and I'm going to break as much shit as I can as I leave your room because I'm tired of it.
Oh,
and I mean, think,
you know,
like when we got to the arena games specifically, it was very much like, good, I want to break every single one of your fucking characters that is here. Just because, fuck you.
Here's the thing, is like, you always have to remember, like, as a player going up against a DM, you won't. You should know that you're always only ever being given things when you want to try to break it, right? Like, for instance, not to get out too far off of Eredan, but Forge Cleric can make anything up to 100 gold. Mundane item. Anything on the equipment list. That means that I have complete control over what I can make. So I had a bag of holding, and I took 100 gold, and I filled that fucking bag up with ball bearings. It was over 1 million ball bearings.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like 10,000 for every like gold piece or whatever. It was some fucking egregious amount.
It was a huge amount of ball bearings.
And I was like, okay, fine. Let's do this in the arena arc. And I turned that fucking bag of holding inside out and just watched as the entire arena floor just sort of turned into difficult terrain with a 10 dex save. And I'm like, well, come at me, bro. But even still, I didn't get the satisfaction of having that work except for like once. And then I was like, well, fuck it, whatever. But yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, that was just a deal.
I think we need to have like a healing episode where we just get all the players from that campaign and just have like a sit down and let's just bitch session.
I mean, we did that. We did that more than enough. I don't like we amongst ourselves. We did that more than enough. Even to Kyle, we did that more than enough. It's just it was.
I mean, I know we still poke fun at him.
Situation. That's all. That's really all it is. It's just a poorly handled situation, and yeah, Eredan luckily survives. He's safe and sound in my world currently, closer than ever to the current party, and you know what? Maybe we'll get to see another fucking cameo from him. That sure would be great. Assuming, of course, that we don't get somebody who just goes, I'm gonna kill him. then be like, all right, well, never mind. Guess I won't play that anyways.
Emiko's new goal: kill that elfie bitch.
Dude,
I will.
If you can roll higher than an 8, I'll give you that.
Listen, that would be. That's funny, and fuck you. Oh, well,
that's good.
Thanks for tuning in for Character Broadsheets tonight. We'll be back next week with a different character.
God, hopefully Amanda's characters. All right.
I'm
Hopefully,
waiting for a knife to come off screen and
right,
just. Hopefully, Amanda's character.
no, please, it hurts.